Hello and welcome, my friends, to Conversational Witchcraft with me, Dawn the Kitchen Witch. Back for another great episode with you today. But before we get going, this is your reminder to subscribe to this channel, click the like buttons, follow, like, share, all the things you're supposed to do on the socially social, on the subscription-y subscriptions. And if you love what I'm doing here, even if you kind of like what I'm doing here, you can now support this podcast by clicking the support us link. Help me bring you more great information and inspiration. I appreciate it more than you realize. I'm just a little old podcaster over here doing what I love, bringing you, magic and great conversations. So if you like what I'm doing, please subscribe, like, support, whatever you can do is very helpful. And don't forget, if you want to hang out with me online or find out more about food magic and kitchen witchcraft, you can find me directly at cucinaaurora.com. And you can also follow me on all socials at Cucina Aurora. So without further ado, we are today welcoming Enfys Book. Enfys is the author of the award-winning Queer Qabala, co-author of Sagittarius Witch, and the author of Queer Rites, a magical grimoire to honor your milestones with pride. They are a high priest of the Fellowship of the Ancient White Stag, coven near Washington, D.C. Enfys has taught classes on magical practice around the world. They also are the creator of, I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, but I'm going to try, majorarqueerna.com.
Major Arqueerna.
Major Arqueerna. You're gonna correct me. Thank you. Majorarqueerna.com. Thank goodness we have a producer who can cut that. I'm gonna start again. They are the creator of majorarqueerna.com, a website devoted to queer magical practice, and the host of a podcast called Four Quick Cues, Book Talk with Enfys, where they interview pagan authors using questions determined by a roll of dice. That sounds like so much fun. Enfys, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Dawn. It's great to be here.
And pardon my mild dyslexia there. I was like, I can't make this word work in my my eyeballs are like, I just can't, I give up. I just can't.
No worries.
Sorry. I'm so happy to have you. I've been following you online for a little while. You've popped up on some of my other favorite podcasts. So I'm really excited to have you here.
I'm super excited to chat. Everything I've heard about you and your podcast is awesome. So I'm happy to be here. And you interviewed one of my favorite people recently, Mara Starling. So I'm really pleased to be able to follow such an amazing act there.
Mara was surprisingly incredible. Like, I knew Mara was going to be great based on just the work, the books, the writing, everything. But then to sit down with them and just hear their story and the wealth of knowledge blew my effing mind. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, I feel so stupid because I know, like, you have so much knowledge. And I'm just like, holy crap. It was incredible. So thank you. Thank you. Yeah, they were great. Forgive me, there's a little black cat, a big black cat who's trying to climb up me. Yeah. It happens. Don't be surprised if I have two giant black cats.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's got very sharp nails and he's trying to climb up me, but he doesn't have the oomph to get his own butt off the floor. Because he's 20 pounds.
Cats.
He's 20 pounds.
Cats.
Do you have any?
Yeah, I have two cats. I have a 12-year-old, I think Russian blue. Both of them are rescues. So, what do you know? But his name is Atticus the Catechus, also known as Atticus of Borg, Atticus Buttwalker. He is just a goofy little friendly but anxiety-ridden sweetheart who loves people and attention all the time. And then I have a 2.5-year-old, no wait, coming up on, oh goodness, 3-year-old next month. Dr. Coda Elizabeth, she is a domestic short hair. She's a black kitty with just a little white patch on her throat. And she is no thoughts, just vibes. Like, absolutely just, as long as she has in her life treats, hair ties, and laps, she is a very content cat.
She's an empty vessel of just fluff and joy.
Yep, she's just made of joy and very singular focus on hair ties. If there are any in the vicinity, she will find them and she will hide them under the couch.
You can see him now.
Yes.
This is Mr. Serious Black Cat.
Aw.
And his butthole. So if anyone is watching the video, you might get to see his butthole. He loves everyone. That's not true. He loves his mama. He
Mm.
his brother, who is also a giant black cat, he loves everyone. He's a giant slut, and that's Mr. Ollivander. Um, Sirius is a little bit more serious. He's a little bit more like
Mhm.
when he wants his snuggles, he's going to get his snuggles. And they are just giant effing babies. Their personalities are so different from other cats I've had. These boys are literally like my baby children, where my other cats, my two girl cats that I had before them, were like my best friends. They were cool. We would hang out. Like their energy was very contemporary to like my age.
Mhm.
These boys are,
Mhm.
you know, like I'm obsessed. So anyway, I promise we're not going to spend the entire hour talking about our cats.
I mean, we could. I mean, that's easy to do when you have cats. Like, let me tell you everything that they just did that was adorable in the last hour.
He was sleeping and then he drooled a little, and I don't have human babies. I have fur babies. And my partner and I was like, hashtag cats, not kids. Like,
Same.
not
Across the
interested.
board.
But
Yep.
I could literally watch this animal, this little fluffy creature, sleep for hours and just have joy and peace in that.
Coda has a habit of sleeping with her tongue sticking out, and it is the cutest darn thing. I have this great picture of her too when I first got her, where she's got one eye is a little bit squinty sometimes, and
Oh,
she kind of has her tongue out, and she looks like Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon when she was
oh,
like 8 weeks old. She's just like super cute.
oh my God.
Yeah, it's one of those cat pictures where you're like, I'm dead now. I'm dead.
Yes.
This has killed me with cuteness. Yep, there he
Can you even
goes.
can you even see him? He's so dark. He's the void. He's I'm gonna scream into him, just put my face in on his belly and just scream into the void. Somebody saw a picture. I had a picture of the two of them. See, do you see what he's doing? He's trying to get over here. I'm
Hmm.
sorry. We're gonna have to, my producer's gonna have to cut all this out. But but he's trying to like figure out how to climb on me. I had somebody see a picture of the two cats like next to each other looking out the window, and they coined them as goth potatoes. And I thought, I've never heard anything more perfectly appropriate to describe these animals. My goth
That's
potato cats.
awesome.
Yes, yes. He usually they're asleep when I'm podcasting, but he just was like, I need to wake up because there's a squirrel outside. Okay, we're gonna just sit here for a minute. Okay, you're killing me with those claws. Okay, this is so you can see him more clearly. This is
Aw.
serious. And he's a giant baby with huge claws. You
He's
see
having
this?
an existential crisis right now, it
No,
looks
he
like.
loves this. If I were to hold him like this, he will stay like this for hours. He's
Wow.
just too heavy. I
He
can't
just
hold him.
surrenders, like just the claws are up, the back is arched. It's so perfect.
You see his little eyeballs?
Hmm.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Emphas. I swear to God, this is supposed to be about you, and now it's about my giant fat cat. Okay,
I
I have
mean,
to.
cats and the internet, you're putting this on the internet, so, you have to give people what they want, and what they want is cute cats.
He's also purring really, really loud. I'm gonna
Aw.
try to put him up by the microphone. I don't know if you can hear him. He's purring so loud. I can't. I can't. Okay, mommy has to work.
So my partner got me one of those like therapy like percussive therapy guns for the holidays,
Yes.
and I started using it and both the cats just stared at me and I think they're like, "You got another purring thing. That's our job. Why are you letting that other thing purr on you when it's our job to purr?" It was really funny. Because it had kind of the same sort of
Right?
bass rumble that their purrs do, and they were very alarmed.
I'm so sorry for the divergence of cat time. I think it had to happen. Uh, Okay, refocus. So, Enfys.
Hi.
Now, you have just written this great book called Queer Rites, but this is not your first book, right?
Right.
So, before we start talking about how you got, what you're doing now, we want to
hmm
know who are you and how did you get here, right? So, like, have you always been into witchcraft? Have you always been into spirituality? Like, how did that even happen? How did you get here? Tell us about your early life. Like, what were your first experiences with spiritual practices?
So I think I've always been in touch with, we'll just use the generic term spirit, but I spent the better part of the first 30 years of my life running away from it at top speed, and it just kept chasing me. So I had to kind
Mm-hmm.
of, the short version is I hit a point where I was like, okay, I have to have a container to put these experiences in, or I will lose my mind. Like
Yeah.
I was in kind of a level of distress about it. So, backing up though, the first psychic experiences I remember, because that's kind of how things manifested to me early on. Um, I had prophetic dreams that came true
Mhm.
quite vividly when I was 6. I had a lot of deja vu. Like a lot of, I just would have flashes of things that would happen, and then they would happen, and I'd know exactly what was happening next. And I always knew when the phone was for me, which doesn't seem like for those who've grown up with cell phones, that's like whatever. But this was when we had landline phones with no caller
Yes.
ID
Yes.
and a family of 5. So the phone could have been for anybody.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's for me. And I was always correct when I was,
Yeah.
9, or a preteen. So those were some of my early experiences. I was raised Catholic, like many, many, many pagans. It's it's not so much a turn as a veer from Catholicism to paganism,
Yeah.
really.
We're recovering Catholics, is what I like to say.
Right.
Recovering.
And when I was about 6, my dad, who'd converted to Catholicism for my mom, but wasn't really invested in it, he left the church and he started to explore what I'm just going to call New Age spirituality in a very broad brush. I mean, he was drinking in anything he could find about,
Wow.
auras and tarot and numerology and Kabbalah and everything else. But my mom didn't really want to talk to him about it. She was
Mm.
uncomfortable with that because of her own spirituality. So he started talking to me about it when I was about 12.
Wow.
And I'm very grateful for that, actually, because it gave me new perspectives on how, I don't know, how the world is, how the world works. I had been questioning the Catholic dogma for a really long time. I was a smart kid who asked a lot of questions
Yeah.
and usually didn't get satisfactory answers to them within my CCD or, my education classes in Catholicism.
Yeah.
And I was largely being told, just believe it or you're going to hell. And that
Yep.
just never sat right with me. I was like, this doesn't make sense, though. None of
Mm-hmm.
this makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so over time, I started to develop an interest in, numerology and tarot and things like that. But I still didn't really invest in it. Um, when I was basically from about the time my dad started talking to me about this, I started identifying it as an atheist. And then a while later, kind of, tone that down to agnostic for most of my late teens and early 20s. Now, fun diversion here, I ended up graduating from college the moment the tech bubble burst in 2000. Like the very second, like the 2000 election happened, and they were still trying to figure out who won. And the economy went to shit. So, I'm sorry, I don't know if I could swear on
Oh
this
no,
program,
you could say
but
whatever. I say fuck like all
okay,
the time. So yeah, no.
okay,
Let
cool.
it rip.
Um, so I graduated with an English with a writing emphasis major and was like, oh, why can't I find a job? I have no experience, but now the market is flooded with people with experience when I was
Right.
promised because of the tech boom that there were more jobs than there were people and it wouldn't be a problem to get
Right.
hired if you got, good grades and tried hard and were a good worker. And that ended up being totally, utterly false. So after living with my parents for 6 months post graduation, I ended up applying, despite my agnostic tendencies, I applied for a job with the ELCA Lutheran Church at a regional office working under the bishop as a communications director. And I got
Ooh.
that job. And I ended up keeping that job for 4 years. And I used to say, I'm not Lutheran, I just play one on TV. But it was a really good job in a lot of ways. And one of the things that gave me, along with other sidebar, I went to a Catholic university. And that actually softened my views toward the Catholic Church quite a bit because when I actually took college level theology classes and we could actually have those conversations I'd been craving
Hmm.
for my entire childhood about, yeah, but
Hmm.
why? You know, then I was like, oh, okay. I still don't believe this, but I get it more now and I can see
Yeah.
why people would. A
Yeah.
lot of my hostility toward my Catholic upbringing kind of dissolved between that and working for the Lutheran Church, where I saw a lot of people doing a lot of good in the world in the name of their faith. And
Mm.
it wasn't all just oppression, repression, that kind of thing. So I ended up working for the ELSA first in that job and then another job for 6 years. And before I was able to transition into a more secular nonprofit sort of world. And
Hmm.
that was when I made that transition was about the time when I really started, where previously it had been a light tap on the door of the metaphysical sort of thing, like, hey, I'm here. You want to look into this maybe?
Right.
All the deja vu and everything else, that became an urgent banging on the door. Like
Yeah.
someone had a crowbar and was like, hey, you need to pay attention to this because otherwise it's not going to be good. So I started
Wow.
exploring, and like many pagans, unfortunately, started with a really bad teacher who
Mm.
was exploitative and manipulative, and it was not a good scene.
Yeah.
But over time, I found better teachers, kind of put myself back together from that initial bad experience, and ended up with the Assembly of the Sacred Wheel tradition based in the Mid-Atlantic, which is where I am clergy today.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, the Assembly of the Sacred Wheel, it's a syncretic Wiccan tradition that was started back in 1984. So we've been going strong for 40 years. We
Wow.
have 14 covens, and recently when I came to terms with my own non-binary identity and wanted to step up and be clergy, we changed our bylaws so that that was totally possible. Like it's an evolving tradition. I know a lot
Right.
of people hear Wicca and they immediately go, but our tradition is really not deeply invested in the binary of gender. It was very, very easy to make the change of like, hey, two people of any gender can be leaders in a coven. And we didn't have baked into our, um, I don't know, our practices a lot of the trappings that people find concerning about Wicca. Let's put it that way. I find
Hmm.
it to be, it's not patriarchal. It's,
Hmm.
there's not that degree of sexism and things like that. So anyway, I've been very content with that tradition. I started circling with them in 2012 and went through, I've got 3 degrees with them now and have been clergy since 2019. So
Wow. Wow.
yeah.
I mean, listen, it's always been my experience that people gravitate towards spiritual paths in which they feel the most comfortable.
Mhm.
And I'm probably going to get emails or comments for this, but in my opinion, and I'm speaking as a cisgendered woman witch, right? Like that's how I identify. And so I was drawn to witchcraft. I was drawn to, I mean, at 18, everything is, it's Wicca, but you don't really know the
Mhm.
difference. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, because I felt more comfortable with the way women were being celebrate it, because
Sure.
I didn't feel oppressed by this
Right.
super Catholic upbringing and like you're either, a virgin or a whore. There's no in between. And
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
I could be expressive of
Mm-hmm.
my femininity, right? And be proud of my femininity. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that this is where people are going to say shit, right? I think it's all the same stuff. I think every spiritual path out there, from the Catholics to the pagans to the Buddhists, whatever it is that you believe, the core values, or at least they were at one time or should be, don't hurt anybody, live your best life, and help people when you can, right?
Yeah.
There's no garbage about gender and this and that. That's all stuff that came in that
Mm-hmm.
people put in, right?
Right.
So I kind of get my back up at that, like, well, people out, think Wicca is problematic or they think this is problematic. If it's problematic for you, don't do it.
Right.
Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this works for you, that works for me. Whose business is it?
Right. Well, and painting with a broad brush of like all Wiccas, but that's like painting the entire denomination of Christianity as universally bad and everyone who practices it. Like there's so much variation,
Mm-hmm.
within different denominations, within different groups. I know there's a lot of folks who've been doing some amazing work with, like elevating and celebrating trans people for decades in their traditions. So just saying like, oh, it's all gender essentialist, it's all turfy. It's like, no, it's not. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stuff out there, and find what works for you. I agree. It's like there are many paths lead to a similar place, but at the same time, it does matter what you do along the way. What is on that
Absolutely.
path for you, and are you helping people or hurting people?
Right. And are you helping yourself? Or are you hurting yourself? Are
Right.
you helping your
Hmm.
community or you're hurting your community? What is the message that you are spreading? And
Right.
believe what you want to believe, but don't tell me what I should believe.
Right.
And I think that goes throughout the pagan community as well. And there are, little pockets. One of the things that really drew me from Catholicism to the pagan path was the freedom to choose whatever I wanted, to
Hmm.
be able to be or express whatever I wanted,
Hmm.
through my spirituality, through my practices. Oh, I could pray to this angel, but I could also pray to that God, but then I could also do moon magic. Like whatever it is I wanted to do, I could do and just say I'm a pagan, and that would, encompass the eclecticness of my spiritual practice. And that was
Right.
enough. Right.
Hmm.
Once someone then says, do it my way, or my way is better than your way, even within the pagan community, that's where I'm not okay.
Right.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
So, I mean, are there any parts of your Catholic upbringing or working with the Lutheran Church that you took with you into your pagan practices, or that you attribute something in your life or your practice to, that you learned
Abs
there?
Absolutely. One thing I think the Catholic Church generally does well is smells and bells, like making your religious practice a full sensory experience. Having the incense, having the music, all of those things, I think really contribute to having a more profound spiritual experience. So those are things I really value in my practice and in my rituals. But also, the most important thing I learned from my years with the Lutheran Church, which I am forever like reminding people of in my tradition, is this: every pastor needs a pastor.
Mm.
And it was a mistake I saw a lot of people make in the Lutheran Church. I see it also in our own circles now in paganism. And that is, if you're leading a group, you still need mentors. You still need someone to guide your own spiritual journey. You can't always be pouring out for others. You need places where you can receive without running a thing, where you can just enjoy a ritual that you have nothing to do with the organization of.
Mhm.
And that's been so important to me. I have regular calls with mentors, and then I also joined my local Unitarian church recently because they have an
Wow.
amazing pagan program with their cups group, which I always forget what the whole acronym means, but something Unitarian Universalist pagans.
Mm-hmm.
They have like 100 people come to stuff for this. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
They have really active, really passionate people and great leadership. Irene Glass runs it, and she is just, if you're not already following her online, look her up. Glass Witch Cottage, glass with an E at the end.
Yeah, she's
Just does
amazing.
oh my God, she does amazing work.
Yeah.
Um, and runs a phenomenal community. So part of why I joined is so I can just go to and they allow you don't have to join to go to stuff there, but I wanted to materially support the work they were doing, and also have access to the resources that a church can provide that my little coven cannot. For example, you know, if, we are a small coven, if something happens where I need immediate assistance, I don't know that enough people would be available to help at any given moment. We're all super busy, we live kind of
Yeah.
far apart, but belonging to a local church, there are resources to access there. So yeah, like I think every pastor needs a pastor, every clergy person needs a clergy person. And too many people get burned out without doing that. And without having someone to also hold them accountable. It's kind of
Mm.
easy to get into that rush of like, I get to make all the decisions. And having someone to check you on your bullshit
Yeah, so important.
is so important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So important. I left a coven early on, not in my tradition, but outside, because the person leading it refused to work with mentors and just refused to take anyone's critique or feedback, and was just like, nope, I'm doing this all on my own. And it's like, it's not a way to grow, my dude.
No, and let's just take that like outside of the pagan circles and outside of spiritual practices, right? Like I think to your point, it is incredibly important if you are any type of spiritual leader that you are still working on that, you're still evolving. And like you said, every pastor needs a pastor. Um, 2 points I want to make. One is in that space, it's important that you do continue to practice, right? So if you are a spiritual leader like yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you can't just lead because then you're not filling your own cup with the practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just
Right.
teaching it and you're not doing it, which is
Right.
very different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's point A I want to make. And point B I want to make is that's a great lesson for everyone in life in any type of position at all, whether you're in a leadership position, whether you're a parent, whether you're, you know, I don't know, maybe you're just the friend who plans everything, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you cannot, no one does things by themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just had a conversation about mental health, so that's where this is coming from. We cannot do everything on our own. And if, for example, your favorite vocalist, your favorite musician has someone who coaches them vocally,
Yep.
right? They're the best in the world. Like Pavarotti, in the place where he's in his career, is Pavarotti still alive? I don't know why he popped into my head, but let's say Pavarotti's still alive. He's the greatest male vocalist that ever lived, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? He still has a voice coach. You think that you, in your little, you know, me as a business owner, that I can do it all myself? What makes me think that if Pavarotti still needs a coach, why wouldn't I still need a coach? You
Yeah.
know?
He still needs a coach, and he also practices every day.
And he practices every day. That
Mm-hmm.
that lesson that you're saying a pastor needs a pastor can be applied in your life
Mm-hmm.
through everything, right?
Yeah.
We always have to continue to learn, and we always need to surround ourselves with people who are better than us
Mm-hmm.
to lift us up, but also to give us the space to continue to learn. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And early in my career, in my mundane jobs, I thought it was super fun being the smartest kid in the room, right? Like I was the person who knew how to code a website and no one else in my office did. I was the
Right.
one who knew how to use these tools. But it wasn't very long before I really started to value the opposite, and I started to get bored being the
Mm,
smartest kid in the room. I thrive in environments where I work with lot of people who have a lot of different expertise to teach each other. And that is how I grow the fastest. Like the job where I learned the most in the shortest amount of time, other than my current job, which is very similar to this one actually. But I worked for a nonprofit called Kaboom that builds playgrounds for kids.
so
In
cool.
Yeah, it was so cool. But I was in a web team of like four people who all had different areas of expertise, but we all were kind of responsible for everything. So the designer was teaching me how to do CSS, and I was learning how to do online community stuff from the community guy because if any of them were out, one of us had to step in and do their job. So I learned very, very quickly how to do an awful lot of things online. And I just loved that. It was such a great
Wow.
experience.
Wow. So you had mentioned something a little bit earlier about when you said, when you were exploring your non-binary identity,
Hmm.
and the rules of the organization kind of
Hmm.
being amended so that you were
Hmm.
able to continue on this path. I kind of want to rewind a little bit. And we were talking about
Hmm.
your spiritual path and, going from Catholicism, working with the Lutheran Church and finding the pagan path. At what did the spiritual path and your gender identity and your queer path align at the same time? Or were they different? Like, could you talk to us a little bit about that journey as well?
Yeah, I actually joke about, I'm not going to say my second degree ritual made me non-binary, but where, uh, one of the pieces of, so we have a degree structure within my tradition where the first degree, you do a whole bunch of work with the goal of becoming a self-sufficient practicing solo practitioner witch. And then there is a culminating ritual to that, which is a death and rebirth experience.
Mhm.
The second degree is where you are aiming to become a someone who can teach others. And there's a whole bunch of work with it, and then that culminates in a ritual that's more about uniting the disparate halves of yourself to become stronger. And then the third degree is becoming a leader, and that's another death and rebirth experience with a whole lot of work preceding.
Uh-huh.
But that second degree, which I got in 2017, I believe, I think it was 2017, was about uniting all the disparate pieces of myself into one. And it was around that time when I started to realize, hey, I'm non-binary. It was more about acknowledging it than the actual change happening. I
Mhm.
am. I have this story on my website. I've actually turned it into a zine because a lot of people found it really helpful. And you can actually download it from my website and print it out and share it if you want. It's called the itchy sweater metaphor.
Mhm.
Where, and this is something a lot of times cisgender folks are challenged, particularly older ones, can be really challenged by the idea of why did someone change their gender, air quotes, when they were, 40 or 50 or older? Why didn't they figure this out when they were in their teens or something like that? Why was it okay to call you she, her until now and suddenly it's not? So I explain this with a story. Let's pretend that when you're born, you are immediately put into a sweater by your parents and you can never take it off.
Mhm.
And let's say your sweater is itchy. Like it's just
Mhm.
kind of a scratchy, sort of cheap wool sweater, but you have it on all the time. So what would you do over time? You can't be focused on the itchiness all day, every day. You will not be able to focus on anything
Yeah.
else. So you kind of back burner the sensation because
Yeah.
it's constant, right? You
You get
just assume
used to it.
yeah, that's how everybody feels, right?
Mhm.
But then one day, maybe through some happenstance, you get to try on a cashmere sweater. And oh my gosh, what a difference that makes. So, and you're like, wow, there are people who feel like this all the time. But then you have to
Mhm.
put the itchy sweater back on because that's not me. But now you realize how itchy that itchy sweater is because
Yeah.
you've put on the soft one.
Yeah.
And now you're like, oh, crap. Well, okay, but maybe you find occasions where you can put on that cashmere sweater again and it feels really good. But then every time you have to take it off, you're back in the itchy sweater and it just feels itchier and itchier and itchier over time.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with realizing your true gender identity. So you go through a whole lot of life, especially for those of us who we didn't have the language for this in mainstream culture when I was growing up in the 80s
Yeah.
and 90s.
Yep.
So you don't have a name for this thing that you feel, and you don't even know it's a possibility to feel this way, which this is why a lot of people are trying to censor this kind of content
Yes.
from reaching children now, because by learning that other people feel this way, you can start to realize that you feel that way too. And it
Yes.
doesn't prevent people from becoming trans. It just keeps trans people unhappy for a really long time. But anyway, so once you put on that cashmere sweater, and that cashmere sweater is either like, oh, I'm actually a woman. Oh, I'm actually non-binary. Oh, they them pronouns actually feel really good.
Yeah.
Um, you kind of have to hit a point of, am I going to keep the soft sweater on? Or am I just going to keep pretending and have to bear the itchy sweater again and again and again?
Right.
And so that's sort of the idea. It's like it was never okay to be like femme or she, her, or whatever for me, but I didn't realize it was wrong or that there was another alternative, you
Right.
know?
And when you put on the soft sweater, you know that that soft sweater might make other people uncomfortable. So you're just going to deal with the itchy sweater because that's what everybody expects. And that's what everybody
Exactly.
wants. And so I'm just going to sit here and be uncomfortable. It's not that bad. It's
No, it's
okay.
fine. It's fine.
But then I think you get to a point where you're just like, it's not okay anymore. And I think that
Hmm.
happens the older you get and the
Hmm.
wiser you get and the less
Hmm.
fucks you give about everybody else's opinion, which doesn't happen when you're a kid. It doesn't happen when you're a teenager. It doesn't happen when you're in your 20s. It starts to happen when you're in your 30s, when you're in your 40s,
Hmm.
and you start going, wow, look, I've built a beautiful life for myself. And fuck you if you don't like who I am. It doesn't matter. You're not paying my bills. I think that therein lies one of the reasons why people do discover this about themselves later in life, right?
Right. I,
And
I think it can happen earlier with social support. Like
yeah,
people can come to that conclusion when they see models and when they're,
mm-hmm,
oh, my friend is non-binary. What does that mean? Oh, maybe I am too. Um,
right.
so
Well,
it can happen earlier, but we didn't have that.
no, no, we absolutely did not have that. I mean, I'm 45 years old, so I grew up in
Hey,
the 80s
same.
and 90s. Hey, I grew up in the 80s and 90s too, and we didn't have those words. We didn't have the
Mhm.
verbiage. We didn't have the vocabulary to even say it was either you were a girl or a boy, or you were a tomboy. Heard that
Hmm.
so much. She's a tomboy, and when you look back at that now, you think, no, that person was a boy there was this girl, person, boy, probably they're a trans man now that lived in my neighborhood, and people were so mean to them,
Hmm.
so mean. Right? Their name was Anne Marie or Marie Anne or something like that. And this, if you looked at this person, even as a 7 or an 8-year-old, you would say that's a little boy, right?
Hmm.
But they were labeled as a girl and they were treated like garbage because they wanted to be this and they were being told they were that. And you look
Hmm.
at that now and you think that's terrible. I think because we have the verbiage now, and again, this is just a conversation and just my opinion, okay? Like I don't want to offend anybody. I think that because thank goodness that we can have these broader conversations now, that when you're a teenager, you're confused anyway,
Hmm.
right? You don't know who you are. You don't know what you want. I, I use this analogy. I go, well, when I was a kid, I would meet somebody I thought was cool, and maybe her favorite color was purple. And now everything in my life has to be purple because I'm trying to figure out, am I like her? Do I like the things she likes? And then maybe I started dating someone whose favorite thing in the world is soccer. And now everything in my life is about soccer. And I'm going to have soccer jerseys. And for 6 months, I don't want to talk about anything but soccer. I'm a soccer fan. And that's how I'm identifying myself. And then I'm on to the next thing because I'm trying it on. I'm trying
Hmm.
on all these identities. And now young people can try on different gender identity. And they can say,
Mhm.
oh, maybe I want to dress like a boy. Maybe I want to dress like a girl. I'm not sure. I'm going to figure it out. And they may eventually go, yeah, I'm trans. Yeah, I'm non binary. Or they might go, yeah, no, wasn't for me. I think I'm exactly who you thought I was. But without giving them the opportunity and the conversation and the support and the love, regardless of what they want to try on, we're limiting them. And it's not to be feared. It's like every other thing a human being is trying to figure out about themselves.
Right,
And I
exactly.
hope that that's not offensive.
No, well, I think we also just need to acknowledge there's a wide spectrum of
Yeah.
not only gender identity, but gender expression. So, like, not
Yeah.
every little girl who likes playing sports is a trans man, and not
Right.
every little boy who likes playing with dolls is a trans woman.
Yeah.
We have put on such bizarre, to me, bizarre cultural requirements for children based on their genitalia. And, just let them be kids and play with the stuff they like and don't sweat it. Like you say,
Right.
there's a lot of trying on. There's a lot of testing out. There's seeing what you like and what you don't like. And, everyone is going through a personal evolution and it doesn't stop the second you hit 21. I'm proof of that. I don't know how many times I've come out about how many things now in my last 20 years. My parents are genuinely tired of it because first it was, "Hi, I'm bisexual," which side note took me an embarrassingly long time to realize because that was another term I didn't hear very much in high
Mm-hmm.
school, and I thought I had to pick. But like first,
Mm-hmm.
hi, I'm bisexual. That's a thing. Oh, I'm also a witch. I'm also polyamorous. I'm getting a divorce. That was a fun conversation. And I'm non binary. And oh, by the way, I'm changing my name legally. All of that. I think my parents would just like a moratorium on major life changes I have to announce. And honestly, same. I would like to be done with these giant announcements because they're never fun. They're very stressful. But, getting closer to my own understanding of myself is always,
Yes.
it's a net good, even though it's painful.
Yes. And we're all on that journey. And
Hmm.
and to your point, we all change and evolve over time,
Hmm.
right? I am absolutely 1000% not the person I was 10 years ago because I have had experiences in my life, met people, learned things, created new opinions, changed old opinions
Hmm.
to become who I am now. And in 10 years, I will be again a different person, a different
Hmm.
version of myself, regardless of if I have changed my name or whatever. What life experiences and what choices we make shape who we are. It is absolutely insane and, quite frankly, idiocy to expect someone to be the same person their entire lives,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Like
Yeah.
all these people that have problems with this shit, like, hi, were you the same person at 20 as you were at 40?
For some
No.
people, yes, unfortunately.
And how fucking sad is that?
It's real fucking sad.
Right? Like these unevolved beings, these people that are so emotionally stunted,
Hmm.
right? Like you've got to know that humans change and evolve. And whose business is it what you believe in, what gods you pray to, and who you love, and how you decide to express yourself. I don't,
Right.
I don't get it. Just,
Hmm.
I'm sorry. I got up on the soapbox. I'm so sorry.
It's
But
okay. I was on a podcast recently. I'm just like, apparently, this is the podcast where I rant a lot because I went on like three separate rants about different things.
right,
I'm like, okay, I'm on fire today. Here we
right,
go.
and it's really really hard. Like the world right now is terrifying,
Hmm.
especially for queer people,
Hmm.
and also for anybody who's othered.
Yeah.
Women, witches, people of color, if you are in any way different than what the mainstream says you're supposed to be, we're all under attack, you
If you're
know?
not a Christian, white, cisgender, heterosexual male, um, it's not a great time.
And not for nothing. Like I don't want to,
And
I
even
don't,
if you are, incidentally, if you even if you are a,
yeah,
Christian cisgender, if you give a shit about other people, it's
yeah,
also not a
it's
great
also
time.
not a good time, right? Like it's just everything is scary. And so now is the time where we lean into our community. Now is the
Mhm.
time where we lean into our spiritual selves. We gather and we do as much as we can to support each other and take care of ourselves. And through the eyes of this podcast, we do that through our spiritual practices,
Mhm.
right? So let's take a quick break from our crazy rant. And let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsors. And then when we get back, we're going to talk about your new book, which is called Queer Rites, a magical grimoire to honor your milestones with pride. We'll be right back with Enfys book. Welcome back to Conversational Witchcraft, where we are going on a little bit of a tirade with Enfys book, and I love it. Okay, so let's get back on track and let's talk about your amazing new book, Queer Rites. Queer Rites,
Yay!
right? It's awesome. It's awesome. Um, so why this book now? I mean, you wrote the Queer Qabala
Mhm.
and it was a major success. So why this book and why now?
A lot of different reasons. This book is really near and dear to me because it's actually all the books I've written are books I wish I'd had when I was younger. I Queer Qabala would have been amazing when I first started studying Kabbalah. It was the
Mhm.
book I wanted to read but did not exist.
Yeah.
So I wrote it. Sagittarius Witch, which I co-authored with Ivo Dominguez Jr. and a whole bunch of other amazing contributors. That is what I wish I could have had. Oh yeah, you're in that one too. That's awesome. I wish I could have had a book like that when I started like delving into witchcraft. It would have helped
Mhm.
me become a better witch faster and lean into my strengths of my sun sign. And
Yeah.
then Queer Rites is really one I wish I'd had back in college when I was starting to figure out my sexual identity and over time my gender identity, because it would have allowed me to step into the milestones I experienced with those rites of passage with an intentional container that I got to decide, right? So for a lot of queer people, we go through all these rites of passage that are unique to the queer experience. Coming out, for example, that's the one everybody knows, right? But things like going to your first queer space or event, like your first pride or something like that, or, celebrating chosen family. There's a lot of things that are part of the queer experience that are often defined by how others react to them.
Can you
So,
explain what
for
you mean by
instance,
that?
yeah, so coming out, especially for folks in my generation and younger, but still, of course, happening today, how many people remember their coming out story as, oh, it's this really joyful thing I figured out for myself and I got a lot of support from my community? No, I mean, for a lot of us, some of us
Right.
that is true and that is wonderful. But for a lot of us, it was, I got kicked out of my house, or
Yeah.
I've had some really difficult conversations with people I loved and I lost a job or I lost people I cared about in my life. Like it's honestly kind of devastating in some ways, or
Yeah.
I got bullied at school, or, all these different things. So when we think back to that rite of passage, that's what we remember. We don't
The
remember,
hurt.
yeah, we remember the hurt associated with it. And a rite of passage is about change. It's about discomfort because change is often uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But how different would it be if I realized I was bi when I was 17 and instead of having a small breakdown about it, I could have had a way to celebrate it with a personal ritual before I told anybody else about it, where I honor this part of myself and talk to my spirit guides about it and, get some guidance from the queer ancestors about it. Like, wouldn't that be, even if people react badly after that, it's me stepping into that rite of passage on my terms first
Hmm.
and not having it defined by other people first.
Yes.
So there were a lot of books. One of the wonderful things about the last 5, 10 years is we've seen a fantastic proliferation of books on queer magic out there, like Outside the Charmed Circle by Misha Magdalene, which I will recommend to everybody until I'm blue in the face because it is amazing and really foundational for a lot of the work I've done. Sacred Gender by Ariana Serpentine, the works of Ivana Burrow. Like there's so many different amazing books that have come out. Thomas Prower. Um, and they often have, oh, and Cassandra Snow, of course, Queering Your Craft. They all had some rituals in there, some of
Yeah.
which were related to rites of passage, but there's no one book that's like, here's a bunch of rituals for when you're going through a queer rite of passage. So that was the inspiration for this book, was to help people celebrate their LGBTQ plus milestones intentionally with honor, celebration. Um, and yeah, it's the book I wish I'd had when I first came out.
Do you think that, you know, people that don't identify in the queer community can get something out of this book? And what?
Absolutely. So the first part of the book is teaching folks how to write a ritual. So that is useful knowledge for any pagan practitioner. It also, I think I've heard a lot of interest in it from not only pagan clergy who want to support people in their community, even if they don't identify this way, but even like there's a group of Catholic priests who were interested in this
Yeah.
book because they could take the concept and adapt it to something that's more within their realm. Um,
Yeah.
and that is awesome. Like I'm all for that. The whole point of this book is that it's kind of plug and play where I give you something you could use out of the box as a ritual, but I would rather people swap in like, okay, this is the deity I work with for this, or this
Hmm.
is how I do this particular thing in my
Hmm.
practice, or these are the personal artifacts I think would make most sense for me to have in the ritual. Like people
Right.
should customize. So there's lots of opportunities for customization in there. And to quote Phoenix LaFay from another fantastic book about how to write and perform rituals that actually work, which came out a few years ago from
Yeah.
Llewellyn.
Yes. Great
Amazing
book.
book. Yeah. But giving you the outline for how to write a ritual, it's like sharing your mother's lasagna recipe.
Yeah.
Like, here, this is what I know works. It is highly replicable. If you follow these instructions, you're going to get a great lasagna. But if you want to make adjustments, by all means do that. Just know it might turn out a little different.
Right. Like, here's
That's
the
right.
formula.
Here's the formula,
Right. You can add a
just
little of this, a little more of that, throw some spinach in the lasagna. You could do meat,
right.
you could do no meat, whatever it is.
You could do
Make it your
eggplant,
own.
whatever.
Make it
Yeah,
your own.
make it your own. But also, if you're like, I don't know if you've visited a recipe blog's comments section before, but there'll be people who's like, carrots are too high in carbs. So instead, I substituted this other thing that has nothing to do with carrots. Like, I used flaxseed instead of carrots and it was
Right.
terrible. And one
Yes.
star review. And it's like, okay, but like this ritual didn't work at all for me. I threw out these three main parts and it didn't do
I
anything.
did
Well,
the exact
okay.
opposite of what you told me to
Right.
do, and it didn't work.
Right. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah, there's
exactly.
definitely, for people who are looking for a guide to write rituals, I would, first recommend Phoenix LaFay's book because it's more general purpose, but then my
Mhm.
book can also provide that, but also give you ideas for how to support the queer members of your community,
Yes.
especially now where we are going to need a lot of support getting through the future years.
Yeah.
If you can step in with intention and help these people to honor and celebrate the things that make them who they are,
Hmm.
that is going to give them such a great inoculation against the horrors that are coming
Right. If you
and are
can make
happening
somebody,
already.
if you can make somebody that is in your life feel a little extra loved and a little extra supported right now, a little
Mhm.
extra understood, and know that they have a space with you because you understand them a little bit more deeply. Again, that's resistance, that's power,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
Um, so here's another question. So I too am bisexual, but I am married to a man who I love desperately. But that doesn't make me less bisexual, right?
Correct.
Right. I'm monogamous, bisexual, married to a man.
Mhm.
So, which I don't think I've ever said on air before.
Hey, happy to be here for your coming out.
I still like everybody in my life knows that I'm bisexual. It's not a thing, but I'm still of that mindset of like, maybe it's not for everybody to know. Maybe it's just my business. Maybe I don't need judgment. And also, I often feel like, well, I'm married to a man. So am I not queer enough? Am
Mhm.
I not bisexual enough? Is this book for me? Do I have a place in this community because I live a heteronormative lifestyle? Right.
1,000% this book is for you. This is a rant. Remember, I told you I was on a podcast. I did like 3 separate rants. This
Yes.
was one of them because I talked to someone who's in a very similar position.
Yep.
And first of all, I recommend everyone read up on the marginalization of the bisexual community, who incidentally make up the largest
Yeah.
contingent of the queer community,
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we
but
do.
also have more devastating health impacts than like cis gay men or lesbians do. Like you're more likely to be a victim of domestic abuse if you are bisexual, which I found really interesting. You
I
are
did not know
more
that.
likely to have like mental health crises or attempt suicide. And I think part of that is because it's a marginalized identity within an already marginalized identity. Because as a bisexual person, sometimes either you erase yourself and say, I don't belong in a queer space, which is not true, or you go to the queer space and someone else does it for you and says, oh, you don't really belong here. Stop bringing your husband to pride, those kinds of things, which are very harmful. Please don't do that. Gatekeepy bullshit, people. Um, you are absolutely, if you are anything that is not like cis het, you are part of the community. Period. End of story. And I will die on that hill. And that includes asexuals, aromantics. It includes polyamorous folks, as far as I'm concerned. I'll
Mm-hmm.
probably get hate mail for that one. But, something outside of that general heteronormative norm of what we are expected to be and feel. You're part of the queer community. You're under the rainbow umbrella. Come on in. We got room for you.
And
You know.
what about fierce allies? Are they
Eh,
also welcome?
I think for this, in terms of this book, absolutely. I would say not every queer space is appropriate for allies,
Mm-hmm.
and it's important to note that. But I think in terms of this book, there's something for everybody. In fact, the first couple rituals in here are about exploring your gender and sexuality, and those are things I think can benefit absolutely everybody. I tell this story about one of the things I love about my partner, who's also a cis dude, incidentally, is that I consider him cis plus
Yep.
because he has done the work
Yep.
of examining his gender and what it means to him and his
Mm-hmm.
sexuality and what it means to him and openly considered possibilities outside of what he's been told he is his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And he came to the conclusion of, yep, this is what I am.
Yeah.
But he's done the homework.
Yeah.
Um, so like I recommend everybody in the world read How to Understand Your Gender by Meg John Barker and Alex Iantafi because it is the most gentle introduction to having those conversations with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And those first couple rituals in my book in Queer Rites can help you have those conversations with yourself as well. And everyone benefits from more self-understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny as you're talking about this, I'm remembering this crazy conversation I had with my father, probably when I was maybe my late teens, my early 20s. And it's just such a weird time to have this memory of him. He's passed for the last few years. So sometimes these memories come through. But I remember, so I worked with my father. I promise this is relevant. I worked with my father. He was a PhD in psychology, right?
Mm,
He worked towards that PhD in psychology most of my life, got it when I was like 19 or I must have been 20 because I was already dating my husband at the time.
mm,
Um, and so he worked like, regular, like 9 to 5 corporate job while he was doing that. And then on the side, he also did construction. And I worked construction with my dad, right? For years, years, building, pouring concrete, moving decking material, like built, like actually physically doing construction. And I remember having a conversation with him because I was upset about something my mother said, where like I would go to work with a tool belt and cargo pants and my man boots on and my nails done and my makeup on, and I was still like, like doing the manual labor. And I remember my mother saying something like, "Don't forget that you're a girl," you know, right? Because that's the mindset. And my father and I having a whole conversation about it, and him coming from the mindset of the psychology background. And he's saying, the most healthy people, emotionally healthy and psychologically healthy people, are people that can identify with both their feminine side and their masculine side, androgyny of personality, being able to kind of go, oh, I can do construction, but then I can also go get my nails done. Like I can express both sides of this personality.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just remembering that conversation that I had with him as you're talking about this, and realizing
Mm-hmm.
that even though I love being a girl, right? I totally am 100% love being in my female body. I love girly things. I like dresses and nail polish. But personality wise, I have a lot of masculine energy, right? I have leadership qualities. I do construction. I like to get my hands dirty, all those things that are stereotypical for
Mm-hmm.
masculine energy, right? I think we all have everything inside of us, and how we choose to express it is that identity. Is that crazy from my brain, or is that like, does that make sense?
I think it makes sense. I mean, personally, I resist the idea of a masculine to feminine continuum that has like those binary poles
Yeah.
because I personally, for my own gender, I see myself on a Z axis between those two things where like
Mm.
I'm nowhere near either of those and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just I always say gender is exhausting. I just want to be a cloud, like that kind of thing. But I think the truth kernel that I find in that story is that the people who are the most healthy are the ones who are willing to explore
Mm.
and who do not feel rigidly
Mm.
kept in one particular box because that's what been told they are.
Mm-hmm.
The people who
Mm-hmm.
explore their identity and try to find out, try different things on and see what fits
Yeah.
and go with what fits without, people yelling at them for saying that's wrong.
Right. Well,
Or if people
that's
do yell at them, they say, well, screw you. I'm just going to do my
right.
own thing.
Well, that's why they call it a spectrum, right? It's
Mm,
all you, it's not one or the other. It's where
right.
you choose to sit between these spaces, right?
Well, sort of. So my perception of it is less that there's like, one line, right? Like it's a spectrum of a line. I think of
Mm-hmm.
it more as like a big sphere
Mm.
or stars in the sky,
Mm.
if you could think of it that way. My gender doesn't feel like anything approaching masculine or feminine, and I don't define that as I'm right in the middle of both.
Mm.
Especially with gender expression, it gets really tricky. I'll just get a little gender theory crunchy with you for
Yes,
a minute.
please. I'm loving it.
But but like how do I express myself in a non-binary way with my clothes is a thing that I think about all the time
Yes.
because what we are told in pop culture non-binary looks like is you are a young, slim, white, feminine-bodied person wearing a suit or masculine clothing. I reject that premise entirely. And I think this isn't about me being a feminine bodied person wanting to look more masculine. To me, non
Mm.
binariness isn't about me embracing the masculine so much as rejecting both masculinity and femininity. But you walk into a store, and where do you find the non masculine, non feminine clothing section? That doesn't
Yeah,
exist.
doesn't exist. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the best advice, and I bequeath this to all of my non-binary babies out there who are on a similar journey. I had a wonderful conversation with author Diana Rachel one time at Convocation a few years ago because I was having such, it gets complicated when you go to a formal event and you have to dress up,
Mm.
especially because like day to
Yeah.
day, I can wear yoga pants and like a t-shirt and it's fine and I feel
Yep.
comfortable. But like if I'm dressing up and I don't want to wear a suit and I don't want to wear a dress, what is my other option, right? So she had the most incredible advice for me. She said, think about archetypes when you are choosing clothing. Think about, like she had a spouse who had a few different archetypes they shopped for. One of them was pirate, for example, and they would find clothes that evoke pirate, and that's what they would wear. And pirate is great because having been in a pirate band for quite some time myself, a lot of pirate clothes, you can do some real wonderful gender fuckery with those. Like, there's nothing super, like even the masculine clothes look feminine
Yep.
in pirate culture and vice versa.
Yes.
So there's that. And for me, I've decided my archetypes for the moment are Muppet, um, soft 80s punk, which punk is another sort of realm where there's no real defined masculine or
Yeah.
feminine kind of clothing. Um, a little bit pirate at times, let's be honest, and sort of
Who doesn't want to be a pirate?
kind of urban Robin Hood is the other one that I go with sometimes. There's this really great clothing store called Silo, Psylo, and they do basically urban Robin Hood. If you follow, there's Blumenek on TikTok or the various social media is an archer, pole dancer, and instructs on both of those things and dresses like urban Robin Hood. And
I'm into it.
when I looked at it, I'm like, that's my new gender. Like that's how I want to look. I want to look
I
like that.
a hundred
So yeah.
percent. I bet that's very hot. I'm just gonna say,
Right.
as you're describing pole dancing archer, I'm like,
Mhm.
yes, yes,
And
thank
does
you.
both at the same time.
Very hot. Very
Sometimes
hot.
while wearing extremely high heels.
Yes,
Um,
I am so
yeah.
fucking in. I'm gonna look that up as soon as we're done here.
Uh-huh.
As you're describing archetype, I'm thinking, oh, maybe my archetype is like swamp witch. Like
There you
that's,
go.
if it's not leggings and a sweater, I'm going with swamp witch. Like
There you go.
that's where I'm at. I love that so much. And I imagine that is difficult. I have quite a few trans people and non-binary people in my life. And I never really thought about how difficult it must be to find comfortable feeling clothing. You
Hmm.
know, there's someone in my life who I adore so much, and they have someone in their life who keeps purchasing items for them, clothing items for them that are the wrong gender.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know that they're very frustrated by that. Um, but they've sort of just chalked it up to, well, it's just the way it is. And they're going to give me this thing and I'm just going to throw it away. But that's got to make you feel so unheard, unseen,
Hmm.
disrespected. You know,
Yeah.
I just, again, I don't get it.
Back in that itchy sweater again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I get your itching sweater analogy because that's how I felt about being a Catholic versus
Hmm.
finding the path of witchcraft. Like,
Hmm.
not even itchy, but like it's just too tight. Like I can't move my arms. Like I can't,
Hmm.
I feel like I'm too constricted. And then when I could
Right.
finally take that off, I was like, oh, my shoulders work. So
Hmm.
I completely get that analogy. You've answered all the questions that I had written on my little piece of paper for you. So, and I realize we've been talking forever and you're probably like, hey, let's be done. But I could talk to you about this forever, Enfys. You're amazing. I think this book, Queer Rites, is really going to help people, not just within the queer community, not just within the witchcraft community, but I really think you can reach so many people with this. And I think there's a lot of good in here that everyone should take a look and read through it and see how you can support your queer friends and family, your queer neighbors, your queer communities. Like this is going to be a really rough couple of years and we need to be fully equipped to handle that. And I think books like yours give us another kind of, speaking about archers, gives us another arrow in our quiver to
Hmm.
be able to stand up and help each other. Enfys, where can we buy your books? Where can we find you online and all of that jazz?
So the book is basically available anywhere that sells books. I have links on my website, but by all means, go to your local pagan bookshop, go to your local indie bookshop, go to your local library and request it for purchase. I'm a big fan of that, especially if money is tight, and for a lot of people, it sure is right now. So please don't hesitate to request it at your local library. I have instructions for how to do that on my website. Whenever I say buy my book, I also include that button of or request it at your library. Um, you can get it basically anywhere. Majorarqueerna.com is my website, MAJORARQUEERNA.com. It's like Major Arcana, but with queer in there. So that's where you will find everything. And if you're looking for that itchy sweaters post, if you just scroll down on the home page, it's right there. You can find the link for that. There's also a really good post for allies on what to do if you mess up someone's pronouns. And that is also available as a zine that you can print and distribute. And did I
Space.
miss, thank you. Did I miss any other, I guess where else to find me online? I am basically, with the exception of YouTube, where I have a channel for Major Arqueerna, I'm largely just on open source social media now. I got rid of all my meta stuff. So you can find me on Mastodon at Enfysbook at kind.social. And you can also find me on PixelFed, which is the Instagram competitor, as at Enfysbook with a capital E because it's case sensitive. Well, I guess the full URL would be pix.lgbt slash at capital E Enfysbook.
We are going to put all those things in the show notes so anybody can go through and click and find you and follow you and buy your amazing book, Queer Rites and Magickal Grimoire, to honor your milestones with pride. Okay, Enfys, last question. And I ask this to everybody that comes on the show. I am a kitchen witch. So
Mhm.
if you could have me cook you one magical meal, what would it be and why?
Ooh. So I have to decide what the meal is and what the magic is sort of independently of each other, probably.
Or well, you don't
Hmm.
because if you're not a kitchen witch, then you wouldn't necessarily know what those associations
That's
are.
true.
So,
That
like,
is true.
just the first thing that comes to your mind, if you could have a kitchen witch make you any meal, what would it be?
Ah. I think right now a meal to enhance my personal strength and self-assuredness as we go into these dark times.
Mm.
Something that would just make me feel, yep, I'm good, I'm strong, and I can take this right now. Resilience, let's put it that way. A meal of resilience.
You would be needing asparagus. You would be needing asparagus. You would be needing things. It's gonna so asparagus was fed to the Roman legionnaires going
Mm,
into battle. Its associations are stick to itness, getting through hard
mm,
times, the tenacity to make it through the hard battle and get out on the other side.
awesome.
So, what would I make you with asparagus? That remains to be seen. Like I could make a beautiful asparagus and lemon risotto for you. That would
Ooh,
add
yum.
like purifying energy in there with the lemon. I could
Hmm.
make you a gorgeous asparagus and parmesan soup.
Hmm.
We could do grilled asparagus with hollandaise. Like there's a million recipes that I can make for you around asparagus. My personal favorite being like a goat cheese and asparagus omelet
Ooh.
or quiche, anything eggy, because the eggs also have fertility energy. So it's about
Hmm.
bringing forth new ideas and bringing forth those dreams and goals. And the asparagus right there with the egg to get you through the hard times to get to the next level. Right. So
That sounds great. I'm on my way.
she's let's you're like, let's go, let's go.
Let's do this. I'm a sucker for anything with lemon or garlic involved, just to put that out there.
Well, I am an Italian kitchen witch, so everything either has garlic or
Perfect.
lemon or both.
Awesome.
True story. True story. Enfys, you're delightful. Thank you for spending so much time with me today. I appreciate you and the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for what you're doing for the queer community. Thank you so much for what you're doing for the pagan community. I hope that our paths cross in real life at some time. It would be lovely to meet you in person. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Dawn. It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, everyone, I wish you so many blessings and so much gratitude.